This is a serious discussion, and I have had serious discussions with the three people on this panel. So please know anything coming out of my mouth has been pre-discussed in the manner that I am going to speak about it. So this is about being respectful, not necessarily politically correct, if that makes any sense. Everybody on this panel is speaking freely, whether they're representing themselves or a bigger entity. So let's just keep it on that level of understanding going in here, especially when we see on our TV that nothing is getting much better around here in the United States. So with that said, Black Lives Matter has brought diversity and inclusion to the forefront of conversations in communities, in classrooms, and certainly and hopefully in corporations. And this panel discussion is going to focus on how to objectively look at your business for inclusion improvements and how to actively participate in creating a diverse and sustainable future for the printing industry, which is not just about materials. Sustainability includes people, being able to have a consistent flow of people in the printing industry. To represent this topic, I am honored to first introduce Keeana Barber. She is the CEO of WDB Marketing. Keeana helps brands bring their visions to life, as well as championing entrepreneurship and empowering future leaders. Paul Nowak, if you could wave to everybody. He is the Vice President of Enterprise Solutions at Quad, a little company you might have heard of. Paul helps brands grow business through packaging initiatives that elevate marketing campaigns with transformative building and innovative technology. And Paul is has some interesting things to share. Joe, who I discovered randomly having a conversation in one of my chats, possibly one of the best finds. He is a division president at DG3, which happens to stand for Diversified Global Graphics, although that's a different Diversified in this context. Joe builds successful businesses by assembling the best people, processes, and technology. He is actually their diversity officer. So we're going to divide this conversation into three parts. And the first part is Joe is going to discuss how to create a company culture that supports diversity and inclusion, because some of the things that we found having conversations out in the open about this was that just because you want to have open up your opportunities for people to come together and work, it doesn't mean that there's actually a support system there for everybody, that the support system works the same for everybody, that everybody in the company is on the same page about the support system. So in my mind, this first segment is about getting your house in order. And Joe actually has some slides. So if Keeana, Paul, and I will go off camera and turn off our mics, and then Joe, I'm going to load the slides for you.
Great. So I should take it away?
Yes, please. Sorry, I muted too fast.
No problem. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's an important topic and very excited to discuss it. Just contextually, I thought I would share a little bit about our company, just so that everyone listening in kind of can frame up where they are versus where you are. So DG3 was founded in 1983 as a printer, pure play printer. We've evolved a lot since then, and we continue to evolve. And now we're about $140 million business with 700 employees. And we provide truly design through distribution in-house and have a really large technology business to complement that. Having said that, 65% of our business is still ink on paper, right? But 35 isn't, since we really started executing our strategy in 2016. We are in the process of a very aggressive transformation. So what that means for us is moving upstream into intelligence, moving downstream into data analytics, but really in a transformation that kind of complements print, but diversifies us beyond that. And we all know why. We don't need to talk about that. Our world is all about leading financial institutions, life sciences companies, large public companies, and that's who we serve, and they have very high standards. And what we'll talk about in a little while is they have very high standards beyond just the product that you're delivering for them, and a lot of people will know that. We already have a fairly diverse workforce, but the real hard, honest truth about that, because we're located in urban areas, but the hard, honest truth about that is that it's not in the leadership ranks. And so what we'll talk about for my part here is our journey, and what it means to build a D&I policy and to really just work as a team towards improving diversity and inclusion in the business. The big call out here, this is true of everyone on this call, our businesses are people businesses, right? Our people are the ones that push our products and services out. And the quicker that we realize that, the quicker we align our policies towards our people and empowering and engaging our people, because without them, presses don't run, data analytics don't come forth, sales don't close. So we are a people business, and that's an important realization for everybody. So a little bit of context for us, right? So we're in this business, and we, like many companies, had an awakening, and maybe some have already had it, and maybe some will have it a year from now, but our awakening came as a result of an external factor that I'm sure everybody's heard of, right? Which is COVID-19. COVID-19 was an absolute health crisis for our workforce, and ourselves included. And what's interesting is it wasn't the type of crisis that most people suffered. It wasn't for DG3 about declining business. It was actually about the fact that our two busiest months of the year, which were already logged, are March and April, right? And so our issue wasn't, how do we cut costs? Who do we have to lay off? Our issue was, how do we keep people safe? Because if we don't deliver for our customers, we'll be out of business if March and April don't go well. We got real aggressive in February before the government, and started taking extreme team precautions. You've heard about all of them, but you know, UV light, sanitizing stations, masks and gloves mandatory, full remote workforce for anyone who wasn't in a manufacturing position. So we did this when it wasn't a good idea. But it was all about keeping our employees safe. And we actually created a program called Safe at Work that engaged every employee in the business. What happened after people got sick is the economy got sick. This was a crisis. Everybody was afraid. Am I going to lose my job? Are we going to be here next week? So we took steps as part of our Safe at Work to ensure job security. We said, we're not doing layoffs. We would rather not have profit than have our employees in personal financial crisis. We are not going to make you take sick leave if you get sick from COVID or have a family member sick from COVID. You're covered by DG3. And that was also part of our Safe at Work. Then it became a community crisis, right? So we started hearing about the food banks running low on food because restaurant workers and so many other workers were unemployed and needed help. So we started DG3 Cares. And that was all about supporting the communities that we serve. And then sort of the crescendo, which is Black Lives Matter and some of the horrible things that have happened in our society that have received even more focus as a result of COVID. And it really caused us to reevaluate our overall values and policy around diversity and inclusion. And we created our diversity and inclusion program just as a result of all of this. So we all have different moments in our life where we wake up and we decide what we're going to do as a company. And this was a waking moment for us. For us, our principle is most people spend most of their time at work, And it is our job to make that safe and positive for every single worker. And our leadership team has committed to that as a core part of our strategy. So here are our principles, core part of our strategy, right? Just like when we say we have an acquisition strategy to acquire a data management company so that we can exercise more control over data, people and diversity are a core strategy pillar for us. It is fundamental to what we do. We ask ourselves regularly if we think and look like our clients, because frankly, we work with really large multinationals, and what they think and look like is the number one way that we're going to connect with them. And we have also determined and been told by our clients that the first thing clients do now is they align with a supplier's values. Then they look at capabilities. If they don't appreciate and trust your values, they don't care about your capabilities. All right. So core part of our strategy, we start at the top. All right. This is a management directive, right? There is room for everyone in our business, and there is a mandate that everybody recognizes that and sticks to that. But then we empower the teams to drive the initiative. You know, the executives at DG3 aren't the only hiring managers. So the hiring managers are responsible for pushing the diversity and inclusion. We're not afraid to talk about it. There is so much data, whether it's from McKinsey, BCG, Price Waterhouse, Korn Ferry. When you look at the quantitative and qualitative data about diversity, you'd be silly not to embrace it as a core strategy, because it actually empirically leads to growth and growth in profit. And our clients are a source of inspiration, and I encourage you to think about this. We talked to our clients about their D&I policies and said, what are your challenges in your own D&I policy? And what would you think would be best in our D&I policy that you think aligns with your values? You'd be shocked at the responses we get and what it means to them and how much more closely it aligns us. Last point here.
Joe, excuse me. I just wanted to say that I want to make sure that the other panelists have some time. So if we could just move this along a little quicker.
Oh, great. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought I had 10 minutes. I didn't mean to.
Oh, no, it's okay. We're just about getting to that, though.
Okay. So what's our approach? First, get your house in order. All right. You can't have a dinner party with no oven, no forks, no table, right? So you can't have a diversity and inclusion recruiting strategy unless people coming in feel it and appreciate it. So training, D&I training, we have standardized training, leadership awareness and sensitivity. I could tell you some stories about some things I've said in the past that have upset people. And my job is not to filter that or be defensive, but to learn from it and apply it. A diverse voice in the business. You have to engage the diverse workforce in that process. Recruiting and hiring, 7 of 10 objective. For every 10 candidates that you see, 7 of them should be diverse. You may ultimately not be able to choose the diverse candidate, but you've stacked the deck in the right direction if you've got 7 of 10 that are diverse. Go to the universities and colleges, Clemson, Rutgers, they have great minority programs, minority organizations. There are diverse job posting sites, okay? Promotions. So training and development programs and high potential candidate programs. Maybe we can't hire our next EVP of sales as a diverse candidate because the business won't allow it at the time, but we can grow people internally into leadership positions, and we have a program to ensure that. And then, of course, internal and external reporting. So internal reporting about our diversity metrics is important. External is even more valuable. So what's my wrap up? Diversity is an aspiration, not a destination. It's something you always work towards and something always changing. Your organization has to be able to deal with a changing dynamic. Start with small steps, just a recruiting site. If anything else, don't beat yourself up. It's really hard to get the talent, especially in our industry. Pay attention and to the journey and have fun with it. We talk about it with our candidates and our teams, and it's a positive thing. If you're doing this as a marketing strategy, you're 100% on the wrong track. It will come back and bite you. Your employees will not respect you. It feels like a breach of trust. If you're doing this, you have to do it because you believe it's good for society and good for your business. Lastly, we should be calling more on the industry to help. They owe it to us. Trade organizations exist because of us. I'd like to see them do more. And finally, we're hiring. So if anyone's interested in positions, senior all the way to junior, we've got positions open. Thank you.
Joe, thank you so much. And I'm going to officially invite you right now to do a full-blown presentation on your presentation. Honestly, it's exactly what everybody needs to have a starter kit on the journey. And the most important thing of the myriad of important things that you said there, the one that I heard was that you have to really want this. This is not a gimmick. This is not a marketing strategy. This is not a way to say, oh, look, we're cool and we're part of the culture and look at us. This is serious. If everybody was watching TV last night, professional sports stopped. This is serious now. That is not a marketing gimmick going on there. So thank you so much. And we'll have it open.
For the last thing I want to say.
Yes, please.
Who is it hurting? That is the fundamental premise to flip this conversation. Who ever got hurt with the diversity and inclusion strategy? Nobody. Nobody gets hurt by doing this. So people should take it seriously and embrace it because it only leads to good things. There is no evidence it leads to bad things for anybody.
You know, it's mindset, I think, more than anything else. And that's almost a perfect segue now into Paul. And we're not using slides anymore, so everyone can stay on screen and, you know, have an open conversation. But moving this along now, let's make an assumption that we have gotten an organization where everybody there feels that the system, the process works for them, that they're comfortable being who they are, whatever that might be, dressing as they like, whatever they might be within the confines of the organization. I was reading something about wearing your hair however you'd like it to be, going to work and things like that. So now let's talk about, you know, we're going to turn to Paul and Quad and talk about, you know, finding and more importantly, keeping these new voices in your organization and anything else you want to share about your journey.
Yeah, great. And thanks for having me. So, and I can go long too, so definitely cut me off. I'm very passionate about this topic. I want to tell just a little bit of a story about how Deborah and I got to know each other. So, in June, I was asked to do a podcast about people of packaging, which some of you have probably heard of. Great podcast. Adam does it. If you get a chance, listen to it. And because it was June, it was supposed to be about how I felt in the print industry and what my journey was to a career in the print industry. And I'm an out gay man at work, and I had never really told that story from that standpoint of the print industry and what that looked like. And so I went and did that. And after I did it, Quad, my CEO himself, Joel Quadracci, reached out to me and said, hey, I think we can do more as a company. Could I share that podcast? That might sound like a really easy, like, yeah, of course, you can share that podcast. So this is going out across the whole company now at this point. And while I was out on my day-to-day basis, I had to think about that. And part of where I want to go with this about how we can bring people in, keep people, and attract was a personal conversation with myself to say, if not now, when? So my personal question to myself was, I'm 50 years old. And I have probably had on my one hand that number of people I've worked with who are LGBTQ who are out in my workplace. So if I'm not going to be a part of that, I had to really sit and think, you know, why wouldn't I be? What's the challenge? If I don't do it now, why wouldn't I? So it went out. It was well received. You know, a number of people from across Quad, and we're a global company, those who don't know Quad, marketing services company, very large, all over the world. I was getting messages from Poland. I was getting messages from Mexico. And the one question that was really coming out was, first, thanks for doing it. It meant a lot that our company put something out, and that in times of darkness, you know, of things that are happening that are very painful in the world right now, sometimes my company is the point of light where I'm seeing change and I'm seeing difference, and that's what I'm grabbing onto. But the other piece that really struck me and made me think internally was about intersectionality. So I'm still a white male, which gives me a certain amount of privilege in the world. And I don't necessarily appear, you can't tell when you look at me like I'm of a different color, I'm a different gender. So there's things that I get with that necessarily other people don't. And so from the LGBTQ perspective, we really start to talk about Black Lives Matter and how that intersectionality works. So again, like if I'm thinking about it on the personal standpoint, I have to look at my own internalized racism and kind of have that discussion with myself first. So the first thing I say, Deborah, is we can all do something if we want to. So this idea of like, it's hard, it is hard, no one's saying it's not hard. Printing's hard. The industry's hard. So we have lots of hard things. Why is this the one we don't want to dig into? So personally, that's the piece, like I think everyone could take their own assessment and say, what could I do in this industry to make change personally? Because I can control that, right? So now you go into organizationally and you talk, about what Quad's doing. Our CEO has been really great about saying, I haven't done enough. We haven't done enough as an organization and we need to do more. He felt very strongly that some of what we've done had been amazing, but as you look at what's happening in the world and like Joe talked about, look at your metrics, look at the data, and then say, have I done enough? Are we representing our clients? Are we representing the employee groups of where we are at the leadership levels? And I think there's very few companies that could say yes. And here's the thing, that's not okay, but we can kind of bond on that and say, let's not attack each other about who's doing it perfectly. Let's take action and do something. So with Quad, really stepping back and saying, we're going to bring in an outside group. So we brought in the Winters group and said, let's really do this assessment based on where we are at today, where we should go, and put real metrics and scores in of what we can hit. So we're about midway through that process now, and it's been super exciting, the energy around what's happened today. While it's very sad, you think of just what's going on in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I'm in Milwaukee, Wisconsin right now, and you look at what's happening there. If we can't take that energy to make some change, it's a waste already that this is happening. But if something can come out of it that is a real change, then we should take that energy. And as an industry, put your business hat on. Like it's not always on, but put your business hat on. How are we attracting? How are we keeping employees if we don't show them a vision of a future that includes them? And I think that's something that we really have to look at. And frankly, I can't be the one always doing that. I can mentor, I can help. There's lots of ally things I can do, but we have to change the mix for that to work. So if I'm just looking straight at it from a business standpoint and the mix of employees in Quad, it's very important from a business standpoint that it be a pillar of what we do to gain new employees, to keep new employees, to get that diversity of thought. So we're talking about print and marketing. There's lots of marketing. How do we know who we're marketing to if we're not diverse in what we're doing? So I'd leave you with that, but lots of exciting things going on. Both, I would challenge people both personally and then to be vocal in their organization. And of course, if you have fear because you need to pay your rent and there's an actual fear of that, my discussion is always, well, think about why you're in a space that you're afraid for that. I'm not saying don't pay your rent or don't, I don't want to not acknowledge that not everyone could necessarily stand up because they might be in a situation where today, if they did, they'd lose their job and not be able to put food on the table. That's very serious. Foundationally, you need to have your safety, but there's things you can do every day then personally still. And I'd question, well, why is that the company long-term you want to work for?
And that's really the question people are asking themselves. If I'm going to be dedicating 50, 60 hours of my life to somebody, I want it to have meaning. And especially with the younger end of the millennials, and don't even start on the Gen Zers. They will not work anywhere that they are not comfortable. And I'm doing that because that's the word that they use. And that applies to anything. If they want to wear headphones, that makes them comfortable. Nobody should bother them about them. And it's not like we're going to be able to force feed our way of doing things on them to keep them and change them. we have to adapt, just like every generation adapted to us, and adapts to everybody below them when they kind of take over the power structure, which is what is happening now. So we are really the ones interfering with not maybe stopping it from happening, but we are also the ones right now in the position to start the journey, or to make it so that they can take over a positive forward motion, as opposed to starting themselves when they're in more junior positions than people of our age. Now, moving this to the next level, I would like to introduce everybody to Keeana Barber. As I mentioned, she is the CEO of WDB Marketing in Chicago, and Keeana is going to represent the Black-owned print shop as far as how the industry can support, because we have been having a lot of conversations about that, and also why not just the industry supporting Black-owned print businesses, but the importance of them, and how really, if you think about an incubator of people willing to help give people who might be overlooked by other segments of the industry chances and training and things that aren't just on a form, some form that might be racially biased. I'm sorry, I'm not even going to say might be, is racially biased, most likely. This is where we can, sort of think of it. I kind of think of it as an incubator or as a nebula for new voices in the industry. So Keeana, first of all, thank you so much for joining us. Keeana also produces the Legacy Awards, which I do hope that you mention as well, as far as how the industry can support. But please tell everybody what you do, and then, the importance of this for everybody.
Yes. Well, thank you for Deborah, for having me and inviting me to be a part of the conversation. So yeah, I've been in business for about 15 years. We have a creative agency, so we do everything from graphic design, branding, website development, and we are a printing manufacturer. So I've shared with Deborah our story over the years that we've acquired equipment. So we produce everything in-house, from digital to large format signage and printing. We print apparel every way. So we do screen printing, direct to garment, and sublimation. So I've been proud of what we do. And as I was telling Deborah, one of the things I want, so I like what Joe and Paul both had to say about on the executive level. So it's the print industry really acknowledging that African Americans are an important part of the consumer base. We consume print. African American women are the largest growing group of entrepreneurs. So we're opening up businesses at a high rate, and we are consuming, and we just have to be respected. And as I was saying before, the initiatives that we have going on at WDB Marketing, when bigger companies support us, they're supporting initiatives that help the overall Black community. So I think some of the solutions that can happen is, as both you gentlemen mentioned, at an executive level, we want to see more representation. When we buy equipment, unapologetically, we want to see people who look like us that we're supporting. Why? Because I think everybody understands that fundamentally, when you support someone in your community, those dollars stay in your community. So we want to make sure that we're supporting people that go on to spend their dollars back with us. One of the other major opportunities for us is the power of PO. So my partner, James, has a great example of a company out of California called Big Printing. And he recently received a contract that was $1 million print contract. Now, this type of contract can transform a smaller company like myself. And as I was telling Deborah when we talked on our podcast, why do you support Black businesses? Because the Black businesses are the job creators for our community. We support the opportunities, and we're the ones that are reinvesting. So when you want to hit a lot of the challenges that happen in our community and that face in our community, if you support the businesses that are actually in the community, we're the ones that are driving the solutions. As Deborah mentioned, we host an event called the Legacy Awards. It's just a give back that we do to support other entrepreneurs. It's our way to pass the torch, pass knowledge. We give away over 10,000 in prizes. So that only happens because my company is successful, that is supported. And we're unapologetically supported. As I say all the time, 95% of our consumers are African American businesses. They're the ones that are supporting us and putting us. And because we do it, we're naturally giving back. So, we talk about these bigger companies and how do they give back and what do they do? Well, some of it is going to be partnering with Black businesses that actually understand what the community needs. You don't have to try to find somebody who doesn't understand the community. Work with businesses that are actually in the community. We hire locally. We support local initiatives. You know, a lot of the things that are happening, I didn't want to get a connection because it's such a sad thing that's happening. But a lot of the issues that are happening is an economic issue. It's an economic foundation. And if we had the right opportunities, now we can be spearheading some of these challenges that actually happen directly. So I hope that answered some of the.
It did. I actually like you to elaborate a little bit more on your legacy award, though, because you did mention it was $10,000 in prizes, but first of all, which is incredible. I've never been to any I think I told you this. I've never been to any printing event where a young entrepreneur would get anything like that. But let people know what you give them, because I think that's really important. And also, how can we support this, for God's sakes? I mean, this is something that we should all want to be part of.
Yeah, so the Legacy Awards is something that we started after being in business for 10 years. We wanted to celebrate, bring our network together. So it's a celebration of Black entrepreneurs. We bring about 600 entrepreneurs in one room. And that night, we award some people who've been doing great business for 10, 20 years. But the highlight is we have a Young Entrepreneur Award. So we select 3 young entrepreneurs, 25 and younger, to pitch in front of the live audience. And they pitch their business. They have to, again, be active in business. They have to have a solid business model. And that night they win not only cash, but as I tell Deborah, as we know, cash is one element that we need for business, but we give them free print marketing services. We give them $2,500 in free marketing and printing services. They get $2,500 in accounting services. They get $1,500 in legal services. They get publicity. So they get all the things that they really need to really support and grow their business. And honestly, this is the same conversation when you talk about how do we make things more diverse? How do we welcome more African Americans? It's not just one thing. It's not just us at the executive level. It's supporting the programs that we need in our community. It's education. It's multifaceted. So that's the same way that we approach our Legacy Awards. So it's something, again, that we do. We didn't do it because anybody told us to do it. We knew it because it was needed. I know when I started my business, I didn't have a lot of knowledge about print. I was outsourcing everything at the time. I gained that knowledge as I went on to figure out, so how do we begin to make some of these things streamlined? How can we get it done fast? Everybody know in the print industry, everybody wants everything, right away. So I had to figure out how can we do it. And I told Deborah, honestly, we had a lot of challenges. We had to go the use model route, because we couldn't afford some of the bigger equipment and we didn't really feel welcome. You go to these expos and it's very intimidating and it's not a lot of apprenticeships or opportunities for smaller minority businesses to really get involved in the print industry on a large scale. So we were able to piece our way together. We were able to get some smaller pieces and constantly upgrade our equipment along the way. So I'm proud of where we were able to get, but it's not that easy for everybody. So that's the reason why we have this event, to create that platform to help other people get there faster.
Now, I know none of us are manufacturers, but I certainly hope that the manufacturers have heard what Keeana has said. She's going to Print Show to buy equipment and she's not feeling welcomed. I would assume, by the way, I assume you go with James. I'm sure that they even speak to him and don't even speak to you. I would assume. I mean, that's just an experience of many women in general at a print show. Even if the woman's the owner of the print shop, usually the person in the booth beelines to the man and they're like, that's my boss right there. So I really do hope that people heard that. Now, there is a question that a comment that was made that I do think is fair, so I am going to ask it, and it is to Joe and Paul about the fact that people went on your websites and don't see a lot of people of color in your leadership, and they're not being snarky about it, but that is a fair point made by Alex Elkins, and I wanted to address that. Joe or Paul?
I'm happy to. It's absolutely true. So that's the first piece. You know, transparency in this, we don't have it at the leadership levels that we need to have, and that's part of the reason we've brought in an outside organization with the Winters Group to say, you know, what are the things we could be doing differently to get it at that level. And, you know, will it be some, I don't think there's one thing, and you know, Keeana spoke to that, like there's not going to be one piece that does it, but really kind of going through the organization and the executive team and saying, how are we hiring? What are our policies? How are we in the communities that we live in? How are we engaging with them? How are we engaging with the schools? And then pulling that up to have an actual metrics that will say the numbers. So yeah, absolutely true. Our CEO has acknowledged this and said, you know, we have to do better, and has put a plan in place to do it.
Joe?
Yeah, so we don't have a person of color in our senior leadership either. So no women, no persons of color. And we're honest about that. And it's not a happy discussion. The reality is, more important than this webcast or anything is, you guys referred to it, when people peer in our windows, highly skilled people that we try to bring on, the first thing they do is go to our website and look at our leadership team, right? Now, the truth is, one layer down, we do have some diversity, not enough. We have some diversity, but at the top level, we don't. It's a struggle for us. Again, we've put in place some disciplines and behaviors that are causing us to kind of shift that trajectory. Again, the whole 7 of 10 interview process, we're just trying to stack the deck, and we're recruiting senior positions right now. But the one thing that we can't do, right, is we can't harm our business in this initiative, because the reality is that puts a lot more jobs at risk, and that's not a net benefit to anybody. But at the same time that we don't want to harm our business, we are structuring ourselves and our behaviors in a way to stack that deck towards a diverse population. But we're not there yet. I mean, our CEO would say the same thing humbly and say, we're really working hard now to change this, but we haven't succeeded yet, but we're not going to stop trying.
And I mean, I'm happy about that. What are we supposed to do? I mean, I have, you know, been going through my own thing with this, and I think everybody comes to that realization themselves. And when they come to that moment, that is the crossroad there. What I now see the matrix. I see it all around me. I ate the red pill. I see it now. Now I have a choice. Do I continue? Do I want to be like Joe and eat my steak and go back in the matrix and pretend that all is well when Cypher went back into the matrix? Or do I want to stay out with the team on the Nebuchadnezzar, and deal with the reality of my situation, which is not pretty, which is understanding first, I need to get my house in order. And, you know, obviously both of your corporations realized that there were some things to address, and you have addressed it. So, you know, that's all we can hope for, is that people listening to this do the same thing. They look at their organizations, they look around, and to Joe's point, have an authentic moment with themselves and say, I want to do something differently here. Now, let's go down a little level to, okay, I'm a person working in a company. I really like working in this company, but I look around and I only see white people. How can somebody actively be a champion of this topic, especially in certain neighborhoods and towns and cities out there? I mean, it's not pretty places, but can somebody from the bottom push this up enough to make some sort of change? We'll start with the corporate guys, and then Keeana will ask. Well, you know, it's a little different. Let's start with you, Paul, because you kind of are one of those people who are making changes from inside.
Well, first off, whenever you can get Nebuchadnezzar in a webinar, I'm all in. I'm not only a packaging nerd, I'm just a nerd. So thank you for that analogy. So my answer is yes, and I always am going to come first from my personal experience because that's what I live and know. So I would say on the LGBTQ side at Quad, we recently reached out and started a group that is a BRG group, right? So looking at a business resource group, and raised our hand and said, we would like this group to exist. We've had 10 people sign up to be on a steering committee for it. They're at all different levels of the company. Some people are very new, some people are senior. It's a real mix. And so part of what I would say is, I think at any level, you can ask that question, especially in large organizations, to say, what are we doing to be seen? Could you start an ERG or a BRG within your organization and ask for sponsorship to that? I find that a really powerful tool. In some of the smaller organizations, what they'll even do is they'll combine groups to get more of a census. So you might have just a diversity group, and that they'll then take on that as a topic. And hopefully, if the company's smart, they will use them as a resource to get real information about how they could engage more employees, how they could bring more people in. So I do believe at that level, again, some of it comes to bravery, and if you're willing to raise your hand and do you have time to do that. But if you get to that point, like you said, you've taken the pill and you see the matrix around you, you do have a choice. And every day you get to make that choice. So if today I don't feel very brave and I just don't want to do it, and tomorrow, I do want to raise my hand and say, hey, can we start something? Can we just do an internal lunch and learn? There's lots of ideas you can throw out there. And I'd say, I've talked a lot about giving grace, but not giving ground. I want to give grace to people to learn and do things, but we can be unapologetic about this now. And I think Keeana said that a couple times, like, be unapologetic, raise your hand, give people the grace to figure things out, but you don't have to give ground on this is not an issue. The data's the data.
Joe?
Yeah, so first of all, the individual will always move faster than the organization. And so it is an individual's responsibility to pull an organization along. I really believe that. It is leadership's job to empower the individuals, and it is the individuals who should have the voice to form representative groups, to drive community volunteering, especially in areas of need. So for example, I mentor inner city youth, disadvantaged youth, getting 4-year college mentorships from professionals in business, including me and some of my colleagues. I think that the teams need to be empowered to form their own groups. And I really would be troubled by hearing a story of any industry colleague of mine who went to their organization leadership and said, look, I'm Latinx, and I really want to form a Latinx committee here to do some good in the community and to talk to management about Latinx issues. And if the management said no, run as fast as you can, because there is a reason for that, and it can't be a good one because it doesn't cost anything. So listening is free. And so I think, again, leadership, empower people, take the action, organization supports it.
Keeana, your thoughts on speaking up in an organization that might not currently represent your interests or things of that nature?
Well, I've never worked in corporate America, but I can imagine that it's very hard. Like you said, if you're the only one in the room, if I'm the only Black woman in the room, where people feel like, my voice doesn't matter. It's just a challenge. And I would just challenge the companies to think different. Think about other types of partnership. Everything isn't, not to knock Black Lives Matter, but everything isn't Black Lives Matter. It's a lot of things that we need: education, economic development, training, apprenticeships. I would love to see your companies actually get ingrained in the community. I feel like if they were more part of the community, you would attract more diverse candidates because they would see that you actually care about the community. Like you said, it's not a marketing strategy. This is something that we truly just actually care about. And I would love to see, like I said, mentorship, training programs, different things like that to actually show that the companies care about the development of the community. They care about the people. Even if this isn't a workforce pipeline, even if these students will never work for you, you just care about the development of the people around you in the community. So.
last question I have is actually a question that Karis Kopp had sent in. She is from Karis Kopp Media. She's PR and intergalactic relations to the Printiverse, but also a journalist in her own right. And she wants to know, you know, a lot of companies are staying silent on the current situation out there, and you know, people are sometimes on what we would say the right side of things, but are so afraid of saying the wrong thing that it paralyzes them. So, what is your advice for any companies out there on, one, should they have a voice on Black Lives Matter, and two, how can they somehow measure that what they are assuming it's from an authentic place and not oh, well, I better just put something on my website so people leave me alone. How can they measure what they authentically want to say will have some impact? And I would just preface this by saying, I believe I have the best intentions here, and I have found myself saying things that probably could have been worded in a different way or would have reached more people if I didn't eject my personal feelings on it, you know. And, you know, I wish I would have known give grace, but don't give ground, because I kind of felt as I was like backing away from my strong opinion on it, I was giving ground, but I wasn't. The grace comment, I think, was something I'm going to absorb moving forward. But I'm just going to toss that out, whoever would like to start.
I mean, I can jump in. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you can go first.
So first of all, let me just say Black Lives Matter. We'll get that out of the way. In terms of the company, you know, it's really challenging. You hit on it, Deborah, in my opinion. You know, first of all, I think I myself and my colleagues believe that actions speak louder than words, but also understand the importance of having a position publicly in order to advance the agenda, right? But this has become so politically strife and so difficult that it's like weaving through lasers that will cut you if you touch them, like in Mission Impossible. There's almost no right way to do this. And so, you know, our choice when we saw what was unfolding was a letter from our CEO talking about all the issues and saying that we are going to take far more aggressive action on diversity and inclusion because we see this happening around us and it's not okay. And agreeing with Keeana that this starts with economic development, education, training, opportunities, right? And so we're committed to taking those actions. You know, but it is hard to walk this political divide because, you know, it's just really difficult and both sides are demonized, and I get it. But, you know, it's almost something unless you're a consumer brand with risk of not addressing it, you almost have a hard time just having a corporate policy on a headline like that. But let's use our actions to prove that we agree and we care about it, I believe, you know, is good evidence of our intent.
Keeana?
Yeah, I was just going to say, you know, it's not a easy conversation to have, but it's one that we must have because it's gone on for so long. And if we don't address it, it just continues to rumble underneath the surface. And we understand that. So I would invite corporations to actually get the right people in the room. Get African Americans in the room, allow them to be a part of the conversation and a part of what the solution should be. I cannot speak on behalf of the LGBTQ community, you know, so I can only say certain things that I maybe understand, but I can't be the spokesperson. So make sure that you actually have African Americans in the room. And like you just said, Joe, make sure it's solution based. One of the things that I've been most proud of to see with everything from the Black Lives Matter is the Black businesses matter. I've been spearheading and talking about this for years, and it's not about exclusion. It's about the fact that our businesses matter, and they are part of the solution. They are part of the economic engine that can help change some of the challenges that we face in our community. So I think that it has to be solution based and bring the right people in the room who are actually representative of the community. Don't just try to feel like, okay, let me try to figure out what the issues are. Bring the people in the room, allow them to be a part of the conversation to help you come up with what the solution should be.
I would agree with everything there, Deborah. You know, the one thing about grace that you were talking about is I think we have to give ourselves personally grace also. And one of the things I've been thinking a lot about is this idea of perfectionism versus progress. And I think, you know, for me, I'm at a point where I'm kind of done. You know, like the data's there, this is there. I love unapologetic. Let's be unapologetic about it. And at the same time, I'm never going to be perfect at this. So if I wait for every single thing I do to be perfect in how I say it or how I approach someone, if in my heart I'm caring about someone and I want to have that conversation and I don't do it perfectly, I can learn from that. I can apologize. There's lots of things I can do. If I don't at least try it, I can't do any of that, right? Like I'm still kind of sitting on the sidelines. And from a business perspective, I don't know if everyone in the print world has been in this meeting. Have you ever been in the meeting where like a year ago you had the same meeting and you have to go pull out your notes because you're like, I thought we were going to solve this, and we talked about it, and it was a great conversation. We went for drinks after. I don't think we did anything. We didn't really do anything. It was a great conversation. I think we're kind of in that point where it's like, are we not going to do that again? You know, like my greatest fear around this is that the energy that is happening out of all this pain won't go to that change, you know, because we've seen this, you know, multiple times. So I think the challenge to the industry is, are you going to be able to, a year from now, look at it and say, we're still not perfect, but here's what's moved. And if you can't do that, it's just been a conversation.
I really appreciate that. And to that point, you know, what I kind of came to the realization about what can I do? You know, what the hell can I do? I certainly was not changing hearts and minds through conversations on LinkedIn. This is what I unfortunately learned is a crazy conversation to try to engage with people who have their minds made up about things, and to actually give them a platform to discuss that I did not want to do anymore. So I have focused on what I can actually do, which is seek and find new voices to tell stories of, and Keeana was one of them. And look at the wealth of information we learned from just one person. And Keeana didn't even mention that she started a whole initiative to print free posters for Black businesses that say, you know, this is a Black-owned business, you know, when there's disturbances in the streets and things of that nature, which actually started in Chicago, but ended up going national because people were like, thank God somebody is out there who hears me and can help me. And these stories are so important to tell, as well as on my website now, I have a page called Elevate Print, where anybody interested in finding new partners to work with to expand their partner bases should go there and look. And I will say this last thing about choosing whether or not to make a position, or if this is something authentically that you believe in and you are a print shop. There are brands out there and big, large corporations making bold statements about their position that Black lives matter and there is no going back. They do not want to be associated with vendors and people in their ecosystem that aren't supporting those values as well. If we just look at a bigger example, think of what happens when, you know, people find out when Nike's shoes aren't being made by people that they're happy, or Starbucks coffee is not sourced properly. This is the same thing. From the top down, they are cleaning house as well and making sure that the money that they're spending, to Keeana's point, is going to the right places. So if this is something you authentically believe in and want to make a change, this is the moment to do it. This is the moment to make sure that, first of all, your house is in order, that everybody on board is on board, or they're told this is the new way that we're doing things around here, that people coming in feel supported, feel safe, that they can speak up and say, hey, I've got a problem, and not weigh what the consequences of speaking up might be about that. Once they are in an organization, that programs continue to emerge and initiatives continue to emerge, so they feel part of progress, part of something good happening in the world. And perhaps most importantly, put your money where your mouth is. Whether it is going to my website and searching for resources, or going to Facebook. I mean, there are cities now coming up with, these are all the Black-owned businesses in our cities. Please support it. Uber Eats has these are the Black-owned restaurants in your business. This helps people get empowered, and that changes the world. So thank you all so much for your time and thought leadership, and really your bravery in many ways of to come out and talk as openly as we've had. I guarantee you this is the first and possibly the only conversation that's going to happen until we have another one, because I am in a unique position that I'm not beholden to anybody except the people. And in my opinion, the people have spoken, and we are only here to elevate print now and move forward. And those are really the only people I want in my inner circle. So thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. Karis has put everybody's LinkedIn information in the chat box. So please connect with our panelists. And I am going to contact you all to do part 2 of this in another format in maybe in a few weeks, so we can continue this conversation. And really we don't want to be on the, okay, well, we said it once and we're moving on with our lives. I think we should stick on this. So thank you so much. Morton, I believe we have decided we're going to try to reboot the webinar.
You said 1:40, so that depends if you've changed your mind.
Okay, no, then I have not changed my mind. Okay, I believe Trish is here. If I can have the panelists say goodbye and
thank you.
Exit. Thank you so much again. I'm eternally grateful.